Hi there, welcome. This is the first video in the major varietals and styles portion of the Wine 1 training. Over the course of 4 videos, we will be reviewing a basic breakdown of the 4 most popular varietals of grapes. We'll be looking at their history, the basic characteristics, and most relevant styles of wine that they produce. Think of these videos as your tools to navigate the vast wine offerings at Coppervine. By learning the general characteristics of each major grape and then identifying the consistent style traits associated with specific growing regions, we'll be able to make educated assumptions on which wines will best cater to the guest's preference. While you might not know the producer background on a specific product, you will know that Pinot Noir wouldn't be the right wine to serve a guest looking for a big and bold red. These tools are more useful than flashcards that you'll forget after you pass a test. It's more essential knowledge that you can use to guide the guests through each menu and program offering at CV, regardless of the current selections. The first grape that we will be reviewing is Pinot Noir. Let's look at some background and history. The history of Pinot Noir dates back to the 1st century in Rome. Burgundy is the indigenous ancestral home of Pinot Noir. What this means is the grape grows wild in the region. The Romans likely discovered this grape on expeditions to France in the 1st century. Romans would actually bring barges of their own wine on these trips, but once they began commercial production of the wine in the region, they decided to continue production with Pinot Noir rather than bringing along their first growth wines from Italy. I think this speaks to the quality of the grape and its ability to make wine of significance. The French region of Burgundy is now considered one of the most renowned growing regions for wine. This influence on quality and style at the international level of the wines that Pinot Noir produces can be attributed to the ruling dukes of Burgundy and religious orders of the time more than the Roman Empire. Burgundy was originally home to a cluster of red and white grape varieties. Monks of the Catholic Church began identifying superior vineyards, isolating them with these stone walls that later became the chateaus associated with various vineyards, essentially identifying and replicating production of specific, more ideal expressions of the wine. After selecting Pinot Noir as a superior grape, importation of red varietals into the region was forbidden, and the other red varietals that were indigenous to the region were called to be torn up and could only be grown in the southern peasant regions of France. That's why you'll hear about Beaujolais, Gamay. These were actually pushed out of Burgundy, are not allowed to be grown in those regions. Because the Pinot Noir vineyards were owned by the church, they became the most notable wines produced at the time, thus beginning the journey of Pinot Noir's fame on an international scale. Before we look at the styles of Pinot Noir produced around the world, let's identify the consistent characteristics of wine produced by this grape. When we approach wine, there are 2 categories of characteristics you want to identify: primary and secondary. For the purposes of beginning education, we can think of the primary characteristics as the varietal characteristics. No matter where the grape is grown, the wine produced will possess these characteristics. These traits are a reflection of the grape rather than the region, growing practices, or cellar techniques. For Pinot Noir, there are a few traits that are going to be consistent across the world. Pinot Noir is a very thin-skinned, durable grape. It's going to be light to medium-bodied with low tannins and medium to high acidity. It's a very fruit-driven grape, so you're going to get a lot of red fruit, occasionally dark fruit, but fruit is going to be the main flavor characteristic for the wine. It's lower in alcohol, so it doesn't have that burn or the body of other popular varietals like Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, things like that. Now that we've identified the primary characteristics of Pinot Noir, light body, medium to high acidity, and bright or ripe red fruit, we can look at the secondary characteristics. These are the traits of the wine that come from the region, whether it be geography, climate, vintage conditions, or growing practices and cellar techniques. While I will briefly review some of the reasons why these traits appear in major styles of the wine, I want you to focus on the specific profile traits associated with each major style and growing region. This will help you identify why a Pinot Noir from Napa Valley might be a better fit than a Pinot Noir from Santa Barbara, or why a Pinot Noir from Oregon would be a great by-the-glass option for a guest who loves Pinot Noir from Burgundy. The first major style or region that we're going to look at is Old World. Old World is a term that encompasses European or historical growing regions for wine. New World will be newer regions for growing wine, typically associated with the United States, New Zealand, South Africa, wine regions that have become significant in the last 50 to 100 years. In terms of Pinot Noir, Old World is going to refer to France and Oregon. Old World as a style. It refers to the style of wine produced in France for Pinot Noir. It can also be termed as Burgundian in style. That refers to Burgundy, the growing region for Pinot Noir. The region of Burgundy has a lot more elevation. Pinot Noir grows on these combs or hillsides and valleys, which provides more sediment and a greater diurnal shift. Diurnal shift is the difference between temperature between morning and night. Both of these conditions put stress on the grapes and develop a greater complexity. These wines possess a lot of red fruit, but because they have that stress, the red fruit's not quite as bright or ripe, so it doesn't take over, which gives way to the more delicate profile flavors and traits that you find in these wines. There will always be significant tones of earth and truffle or mushroom and vegetation, a lot of green tones, and these wines tend to be darker and more masculine in style. They do keep with the light-bodied characteristics, higher acidity, low tannin, but they tend to be more tart and have a lot of those dark, earthy flavors. Oregon, because they are a similar growing region, in terms of elevation, soil sediment, and climate, tend to kind of mirror the traits and styles found in Pinot Noir grown in France. Oregon Pinot Noirs are a great alternative to Burgundian Pinot Noirs. They tend to be a little bit more approachable in price point, and more commonly found on a by-the-glass list. So someone who really likes French Pinot Noir, an Oregon Pinot Noir would be a great alternative. Even if they start with a Burgundian Pinot Noir, it's a cool way to continue the guest journey and offer them a new product within the same category of style that they prefer. Next, we will move into New World styles of Pinot Noir, most notably California is a growing region, and more specifically, Napa Valley, Russian River, Alexander Valley. These are the growing regions in California off the coast, more inland. California is an ideal region to grow Pinot Noir because of the warm weather and the cooling air that comes off of the coast. You can achieve great fruit development without compromising or burning off acidity and sugar. These are wines with a great deal of balance. The vineyards themselves sit on the valley floor, so they're a warmer climate with a less significant diurnal shift, so they don't get those really cool nights or the high heat during the day because they're lower elevation. These wines tend to be very fruit driven, lots of cherry, strawberry, berry flavors. This is the really ripe, fresh, juicy style of Pinot Noir. There's a lot less sediment in the soil, and the soil tends to be more fertile. So it's not putting quite as much stress on the grapes that you would find in the regions that we discussed, like Oregon or Burgundy in France. That kind of creates a style of wine that lacks the complexity and the masculinity and really drives those fruit flavors. Some of the secondary flavors that you'll find in California styles of Pinot Noir would be really just fresh, light tones of herbs and vegetation. Think like green bell pepper, oregano, sometimes basil tones, thyme. But these flavors are not front and center. It's really the fruit that drives these wines. They tend to be more simplistic in style. Really great for the warmer weather, beginning wine drinkers, people who don't want any of that intensity in a wine. These are really approachable. The last major style we'll look at for Pinot Noir in Wine 1 is going to be coastal. These are growing regions that sit very close to the coast of whatever country that they reside in. The specific growing regions I want y'all to keep in mind are Santa Barbara and Sonoma, both in California, and New Zealand. When the vineyards sit very close to the coast and you have a grape variety like Pinot Noir that has a thinner skin, the grapes actually absorb this salinity that is held in the air in these coastal regions. This adds a really fresh minerality to what would otherwise be very simplistic, fruit-driven styles of Pinot Noir. The coastal climate also cools the grapes, so they get this really rich fruit development. There's no heat burning off acidity and sugar, which you need to create structure in Pinot Noir because it is so light-bodied. And it tends to have a little bit darker of a fruit profile, so you'll focus on those cherry flavors rather than like those fresh red berry flavors. And it also enhances acidity, which pairs very well with the salinity, that salty finish. And it really just creates kind of that nice complexity, light complexity on a very simple fruity style of Pinot Noir. These are a great middle ground between California, inland California styles that tend to be somewhat too simplistic, and a sometimes intense style of Pinot Noir that you would find in Oregon or Burgundy. Still very refreshing and good for the warm weather, but not just all fruit. Lastly, I've detailed Coppervine's Pinot Noir by the glass offerings. They're organized by style, but can be found on either the tap wines or cellar by the glass sections of the main dining menu. For detailed tasting notes and selling points, just refer to your draft and Corvin study guides on Fusion Prep.